Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
And as part of our US Open coverage, Joel and I are taking a little AG1 challenge of our own, and we'll be updating you on our AG1 journey and how it's improving our health and wellness. So Joel, we've got started. How are you finding it?
I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous, I was a little bit skeptical at first, but I got my flask, put one scoop in, added water, shook it all about, and do you know what? It actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised because normally the healthier something is, the worse it tastes. But for me, what I like is I've got a cupboard of vitamins that it's been able to replace. So that's just one product I can take in the morning.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. Check it out.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's US Open Round 3 catch-up, sponsored by AG1.
Djokovic survives a 5-set scare.
Rybakina gets dumped out by Kasteya.
And Jack Draper is the last singles Brit standing.
Chris, today is the 3rd of September and we are here to catch up on round 3 of the US Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. We are very close to getting to the second week of the Grand Slam, very close to round 4, and lots of action to catch up on the men's and women's sides. The Brits, although we started with a bang, we are now left with just one Brit standing in the singles.
Normal service has resumed.
Normal service exactly has resumed. But the Americans are really having a ball, aren't they, on the men and ladies sides?
Yeah, there's 8 Americans through to the last 16, 4 on both sides. So if you hedge your bets, you'd imagine there would be some Americans at later stages. But a lot of them have to play each other coming up. So we've got Pegula's taking on Keys. We have Tommy Paul taking on Ben Shelton. So the numbers will go down. We won't have 8 in the last
exactly.
16,
and actually, with Ben Shelton, I saw he produced the fastest serve of the championship so far, 147 miles per hour, an absolute cannon of a serve. I watched on the highlights.
Wow, he's got a phenomenal serve, and there were audible gasps when he played against
Where's
Team.
this been all the year? I swear, nothing. He's not really. It's been all the hype. Nothing has happened, and then all of a sudden, we've still got the hype. He plays the US Open Kids Day or whatever, and now he's into round 4.
Well, was he attending the US Open Kids Day, or was he there as a player? But no, he's got a fantastic serve, and on clay, it really worked well. But it's his first season. He's finding his way on the tour, and I'm
Very
sure...
true. I mean, he hadn't really been playing tennis outside of America up to
He did have a
up to this
passport, I
season.
think. It was his first time outside the US in Australia. So he's now made it to all 4 slams, and that's no small feat.
He's racking up the stamps
and the
in
air
his
miles.
passport, yes, and the air miles as well. Yeah, I hope he's getting the air miles in. But we're going to be talking about all the action from round 3, and we're going to start, Chris, because you were there yesterday. It was all very exciting because we had lots of Brits in action. Unfortunately, we've only got one left, and we're going to start and sort of clamour to the victory that was Jack Draper, who's now in the round of 16. He defeated Michael Mmoh 6-4, 6-2. Slight blip in that third set, 3-6, and then 6-3 in the fourth. You were there for this match. Jack Draper now into the round of 16 for the first ever time at a Grand Slam. He's making me eat my words every victory he gets, because I was questioning whether you should play this given his physical issues. But what was it like being there courtside watching this?
It was great. I think it's such a bonus based on what we thought, as you said, for him to even be here. When it came to how the match went, I think it was a really uneventful, uninspiring sort of initial couple of sets, because Jack had a very good game plan. It was don't go for too much, play the point out, and then pull the trigger and be super patient. And I think it didn't make for the most entertaining tennis, but I think that most brand
That's what you want as a British fan, is it not?
A safe pair of hands. And then what happened in the third set, though, Joel? And I think he's a player where you have to be against Michael Mmoh. You've got to be very, very patient, because he doesn't hit the ball hard, a lot of topspin, a lot of mid-court, and he basically says to you, you've got to hit through me now. The ball's on your racket and you have to take the initiative. And I've never heard Jack let out like a cry of frustration and throw his racket before, ever. And he really did it in that third set before he got it back together. And his talent level is so much higher. So it was great to see him get the win. But I was worried the entire time that what if he gets worn down in this? Like, what if he goes to a fifth set and he runs out of steam? I was still concerned, but now he's through. I think it's very different playing against Rublev. It will be a pace that he's much more used to.
I mean, just talking about the fact that Michael Mmoh was playing in front of a home crowd, and how did Jack Draper handle facing him and the support of the American crowd? Because it sounded like, that it sort of went over for him at one point with that kind of racket throw. But how did you feel like he handled quite a intense atmosphere with American wildcard, outside courts, them wanting to see an upset? How do you think he approached that and handled that situation?
Yeah, I think the first set, before kind of a lot of the fans had got there, it was okay. I think as the match went on, it did start to annoy him a little bit. There were lots of chanting, and I think it is a frustrating situation to be in. I'm not sure how many times he would have been in that situation. It's very different against a Hurkacz or an Albert. I think that if Mmoh had a bit more on his racket, and it went to a fifth set, I do think that would have been very challenging to deal with. And actually, I caught up with a couple of fans at lunchtime who were like, "Oh, that Jack Draper's got a bad temper," and I was like, "You couldn't be more wrong. He's such like a chill guy normally." So I think it was really important for him to get it done in four. But I mean, all of it's good experience, because you never know. You might be facing, I don't know, Diminar in the fourth round of Australia, and then those crowds will be equally as vocal probably. So I think it was quite funny at times. He almost tried to get the crowd to like be G'd up, but like cheer a bit louder. And I think he remembered he was in the US, and then that's why no one cheered.
I mean, he's such a great prospect, and I'm almost really glad he's had this run of form in him at the US Open, because it's not really clicked for him at the Grand Slams so far in this season. It's just been one injury after another, and we were all kind of hoping for that big breakout moment at Wimbledon, and it didn't really happen. So it's nice, I think, for him to get this moment and just, I think, sort of show that he's living up to his potential, and dare I say, the body is holding up on him, and I think we will see the talent there. And it's going to be exciting when he does face Andrei Rublev, because people are talking about Jack Draper in terms of where can he go, where can his ranking go. Do you see him testing Rublev, potentially upsetting him, or do you think that's going to be a step too far?
I think the serve's going to be really important for him. I think there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to. I think Rublev hasn't been playing kind of lights out tennis throughout the tournament. I think he's struggling a little bit for form, particularly in this sort of hardcourt phase of the year. It's tricky. It's so hard to know with Jack, because we haven't seen him play that much tennis this year, and it was a very reserved performance he put in.
Yeah.
But when it's on, it's on. He's got nothing to lose. We've seen him upset big players like Kachanov last year at the US Open, and it's not a completely dissimilar game style. So I would say, why not? He will be able to play very freely. Do I think he's going to do the upset? I don't really, though. I think
it's going to push Rublev, but it's come a bit too soon.
A bit too soon, yeah. I mean, he obviously didn't even play Wimbledon, and it's quite a different situation. But at the same time, we've seen upsets galore at different times. So who knows? I guess
that is very true.
Can you tell that I'm very hesitant to say anything now because of how wrong I've got it?
It's fascinating, because I believe in the men's singles draw, there are no seeded players left from seed position 17 to 32. It's just like completely decimated, completely barren, and we're sort of just left with the top seeds, and we've got players like Borna Gojo still going. Borna Gojo hasn't even dropped a set yet. Him and Taylor Fritz are the only ones in the men's competition on that front. But it feels very kind of unfamiliar at times. But this is the US Open. This is the final Grand Slam of the year, and I think because of that position, we normally get a little bit of weirdness, I think, kind of going on with the draws and the results. I mean, a couple of other Brits that were in action, Dan Evans and Cam Norrie. I'd say, Chris, performances-wise, both on different sides of the spectrum, because Dan Evans, although he lost to Carlos Alcaraz, he put up a great performance. Carlos Alcaraz was clapping him off the court. The crowd were clapping him off the court. He really raised his level to that level I think we saw, and even beyond, actually, I think we saw in Washington when he won the 500 title there. But Carlos Alcaraz was just too good, particularly in that fourth set. But then on the other side of the spectrum, as I said, Cam Norrie falling rather meekly to Arnaldi of Italy in straight sets. I know Arnaldi's 22 years old and there's really big hopes for him from the Italian contingent, but two performances that were very much, I think, almost kind of worlds apart at times.
Definitely. I did feel like with Dan Evans, though, he loved the occasion and wanted to play well for the occasion, but I don't think he was too hung up on whether he got the win or not. He was just having a great time out there. And I've never seen two players smile more during what should be like a really big deal match. And the crowds on the big screen, I saw some of it. They were loving it, laughing their heads off at some of the points and some of the rallies and the spirit that match was played in. So I think that with that one, I think it was a case that it brought out his best tennis playing against the world number one. Whereas for someone like Norrie, where the pressure is on him to get some results because he obviously hasn't had his best season to date. He's in a similar situation last year where he wasn't going to qualify for the end of season championships. He wasn't getting the results. And it could be a case, he wants it too badly. But Arnaldi, that's a really bad scoreline, I have to say, because Arnaldi doesn't have a huge amount of weapons. Everything has to be working for him to get one of those big results. He is very, very good at moving. He's great on both wings. There's no weaknesses there, but he is someone who a player like Norrie should be able to pick apart, really. So I was looking at some of the stats from this match to try and figure out kind of what went wrong, and I think it was a case that it was a bit of an off day because his first serve was at 70%. He was winning only 60% behind it. But he wasn't taking his chances, so he took 1 of 5 break points, whereas Arnaldi took 5 of 6. So it's just one of those days you have to think, and a very inspired Arnaldi, getting inspired by the other young players who are doing so well here. I mean, we have players like Sinner, we've got Alcaraz, Ben Shelton, we've got Rinky, who's still in. We've got Stricker. It's definitely, and Jack Draper. How can I forget? All under the age of 23. So I think it's a case where a lot of the young people are seeing how well each other are doing and thinking, well, why not me?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was disappointing for Norrie because Arnaldi had played 5-set match against Arthur Fee in the second round, and I thought, Norrie is a player on the tour known for just grinding out results and pushing his opponent physically, and I thought that might have been what he would have tried to do in this match, but Arnaldi just sort of asserted his authority from the back of the court. I wondered if, particularly Norrie's forehand, the topspin there, it just sat up really for Arnaldi to hit and really kind of start the rallying points off really, really well and putting him in a great position. And I think it was kind of disappointing from that point of view. I mean, he will now move Norrie on to Davis Cup in Manchester next week, and Dan Evans going to be there. Andy Murray's going to be there. Jack Draper should be there. We'll see how far he goes in the US Open. What for you would be kind of your number 1 and number 2 picks for the singles for GB if you were Leon Smith, given we've seen all of this great tennis from Jack Draper? We've seen great tennis also from Dan Evans, but Cam Norrie, who's British number 1, arguably less so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one in that sense. I think they've got a bit of a different tact here than what obviously the women do, with Anne Kjovathong preferring to play a doubles pair that play regularly together on the tour for those kind of key clutch doubles matches. So currently we have 3 singles players, 2 of them who can play doubles very well, in Andy Murray and Dan Evans. Evans and Skupski would be the natural selection for the doubles team. But I mean, Norrie might be your banker there, one of your rotation players, and I would play Jack and Dan Evans if it was full strength. Potentially Murray in the doubles, or Dan Evans and Neil Skupski in the doubles, and put kind of Murray on the bench in that sense. But we know how it works. We know that you have to rotate, otherwise it is very taxing on the body, and playing twice in a day and then coming back in and doing it all over, it can be very taxing on the body. So for me, Jack Draper would be my number 2. I put Dan Evans probably at number 1. But then that's going against the ranking.
We've not really seen much of Jack Draper, I feel, in Davis Cup. Again, he's normally just been injured. So I hope maybe, this time in Manchester,
experience will be beneficial. Yeah,
exactly.
It would be good, I think.
Trigger. This is this is qualifier, for the finals essentially, in this kind of round robin group stage format. So there's no doubt, I think Jack Draper, hopefully, assuming all goes well, can be there and be fighting fit.
We want to see Jack there as well, don't we? We want to see him there because we're going to be there. And
I know.
I really enjoyed seeing him play, and then it'd be quite fun going from saw him in New York and then seeing him in Manchester.
Elsewhere, we had Andrew Rublev, as I said earlier, win. He's now defeated 3 Frenchmen in a row, Cazot, Monfils and Rinderknech. So I feel like he's probably quite happy he doesn't have to face another Frenchman in round 4. Yannick Sinner also coming through. Chris, I noticed the Carota boys were in attendance in the crowd.
Just behind me, Joel. Just
were
behind
they?
me.
Okay.
Yeah,
what was that like? What was that experience like?
They keep the carrots on. That was my really surprising thing. It was warm in there. We were on the sunny side, and
you thought they were going to take them off because it was like really hot, really hot.
Yeah, I really did, and I mean, clearly the fact that they are Italian means that they able to withstand the heat better than I can.
Costume material is breathable. I don't know, wicking material.
You think it's like Sabalenka's custom Nike kit that they've got custom carrots?
It's probably not like what Ons Your Balls wears, because I swear she's just dripping in sweat from like point 1.
It might be because of that material looks like that. The dark material sometimes does look like that. But no, they were not as vocal as maybe I thought they would be. But they had just arrived. It was their first day on site. But I did get to witness the first ever meeting of the Carota boys with Yannick Sinner.
Wow.
And I was quite impressed with the way that he handled it, because if it was me, I'd be kind of giving these kind of adult men a restraining order. But he invited them down. He took some pictures, took a selfie. So they didn't make all the difference in the match, but there was a lot of support for Wawrinka there, which I was quite surprised. He's so well liked there, which obviously I really like him. I think he's fantastic, and his coach is obviously Magnus Norman, who we've had on the pod. But Sinner, I think it was quite unusual because it was almost like he was playing against the crowd. So the Carota boys, I was like, come on, lads. You've flown out to New York. You're wearing carrots. Let's hear a bit more from you.
I mean, there's an argument to say I think Sinner's a little bit unlucky with his round 4 matchup, because he has Alexander Zverev next. And I don't feel like we've even spoken about Alexander Zverev all tournament, but he seems to be playing some pretty good ball. Do you feel like there's been like a lack of chat about Zverev, given that, the tennis that he showed? I mean, Sinner's come through against Wawrinka in 4 sets. Zverev came through against Dimitrov in 4 sets. I was particularly impressed with how he handled the second set tiebreak, because that was very close. Dimitrov very easily could have gone 2 sets up, and perhaps an old Zverev wouldn't have, maybe able to kind of take out the clutch tiebreak, as it were, and then it just sort of fell away from Dimitrov from there. But yeah, Sinner Zverev, that to me is quite an interesting, like, not round 4 matchup, given I think that the tennis we've seen from them over the last week or so.
I think with Zverev, it's very hard to know where his level will be at. He played very well against Djokovic. He obviously
Chris, is this
Medvedev.
when you're going to bring out the stat around he's never beaten a top 10 player in a Grand Slam draw ever before?
I mean,
is that still true?
Let me think. Oh, I don't know if that's still true. Listeners, please correct us. But
it's either that or 1, right? He's not done it very often.
I think it might be 1, but then that would have to be the French this year, and he didn't really play anyone that tough at the French this year, I don't think. So I cannot confirm or deny that. But in terms of the tennis that we've seen, I think it's not been sparkling from either. I think that's definitely the case, in the sense that there have been hiccups on both sides. Sinner probably should have put that away. He was definitely rolling in the second serve. It was about 71 miles an hour. That's slower than an Andy Murray second serve. And there's rumours of kind of a back injury there, and it didn't feel like he was playing kind of phenomenal tennis, and that serve was really under fire. I mean, he won 24% of points on the second serve in the second set, and it was very noticeable that Sam was able to really hit through that. So that's a key thing for me. And I think with Zverev, I mean, he did get past Dimitrov, but Dimitrov is kind of famous for kind of choking in big matches, and Dimitrov was actually, I think, a set and a break up, and he should have really got the first 2 sets, and then it looked like his spirit was crushed in that sense. So he's competing well, I'd say, for Zverev right now. In that match, I think it's hard to say who the favourite will be. I think probably based on some of the form that we've seen recently, you'd think that Zverev might have the edge, especially if there is an injury with Sinner. But who's your pick, Joel?
Do you know what? I'm slightly edging towards Sinner, although I'm sure listeners won't like me saying that because they want the, Carlos Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner potential matchup at the US Open. But I would give Zverev the edge. I think no one's really talking about him. He's playing some good tennis.
Back in the top 10 in the live rankings.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's obviously got previous here, so at Flushing Meadows. So, I'd maybe give him the slight edge, but I think that's going to be... I think they're almost kind of both unfortunate that they're facing each other, I think, at a round 4 stage. That, to me, feels arguably like a quarterfinal type matchup. But we will see. The draw, it takes no prisoners, as it were. Daniel Medvedev also came through in the night match against Sebastian Baez in 3 sets. It so nearly went to 4. But yes, Medvedev is also through. Moving on to the women's side, Chris, let's talk about the Americans. Jessie Pegula, Madison Keys, they are going to be facing off against each other in round 4. Jessie Pegula had a very handy win against Elina Svitolina in 3 sets, 6-4, 4-6, 6-2. And then Madison Keys equally had a very handy win against Ludmila Samsonova, 5-7, 6-2, 6-2. Yeah, the Americans, as you said, they're doing well in the men's draw and they're doing well in the women's draw. And yeah, Jessie Pegula just seems to be kind of rolling on, and great win against Elina Svitolina, who's had a great comeback season, and now Madison Keys next, who is no stranger to going deep at the US Open. That's going to be another challenging obstacle, isn't it?
Yes, I think it definitely could be. As far as kind of their head-to-head goes, I'm pretty sure that Pegula has had a kind of a positive head-to-head there. When they have played, I think more recently, it's been quite straightforward. I think it's just the nature of Pegula's game is that, she's very good at absorbing the pace and then doing something with it. She's not at all concerned by like a fast ball in that sense. And I think that it's going to be tough for Keys because Pegula's moving better than she has done before. I really think she's in like her peak at the moment. And she's very difficult to upset because Svitolina's got some firepower as well, and she can move really well. So whoever won that match, I probably would have put as the favourite to win against Keys. I think it was going to be tough for Maddie. It's going to be a lot of it's always on her racket. Her whole career is on her racket, whether she makes more than she misses. And so with Keys, it's so hard to know who's going to turn up. Like, I mean, we've seen it before at the Australian Open. I think it was last year where she was just on absolute fire. It was tennis from another planet. It really was. And then, the next time you see her play, it's Joel, you're sharing an update on the podcast of 50 unforced errors in a 2-set match.
I know.
So that one's a hard one to call, but I do think Pegula's too consistent this year. So it's great for Maddie to get the win over Samsonova, but someone like Pegula, she's not going to give you a win.
No. And another player that is also through, Ons Jabeur against Marie Bushkova. Another 3-set battle, another warrior-like performance. Well, I know. I mean, the feeling is that Ons Jabeur has got kind of a flu or a cold. She's just physically not 100%. And Marie Bushkova in this match also physically wasn't 100% either. I think she was carrying an injury. It looked like in that 3rd set. And Ons Jabeur she just keeps. I mean, it's the story of her tournament so far, isn't it? She just keeps finding a way to win, and it's normally been in 3 sets.
And if you're sick, I'd like to spend the little amount of time as possible on court, Joel. I'm not sure about you. She's like, no. I would need 3 hours of exercise to get over this flu. Because
that's not how I would approach a flu, but yes.
I think it's this, something about Ons I always find funny is that I don't think she does get as much enjoyment from a straight sets win. I think she loves the fight. She loves the battle. And she talked about...
the crowd definitely does.
They do. And they talked about in her on-court interview after her match win against, I think it was another Czech against Noskova, that she's a warrior on court. She's like, that will be my symbol for the tournament. And I'm like, don't let warrior be the symbol for the tournament. Let something much simpler than that, Let straight sets win be the symbol of the tournament.
Do you think it could catch up on her, going into week 2, given all of the battles that she has been in so far?
I think it's going to be more to do with the fact that, yeah, she has had obviously a lot of time spent on court, but the bigger
She's not
question
playing her best
is
tennis either.
Yeah, she's got to start quicker in these matches, and I think she never normally plays her best tennis in the early rounds, that's for sure. And the better the player is, the better she tends to play. So it's almost like each kind of half of a slam, you have different scuppers that turn up, and we're in the warrior phase at the moment. But Qinwen Zheng is another tough customer, but a pretty good draw if you're being honest for Ons at this point. Quite a similar sort of level of game as some of the players that she's played so far. So hopefully she'll be able to kind of bring a slightly higher level for that one.
Yeah, I mean, Zheng has come through to round 4. She defeated Podoroska in the first round, Kanepi second round, and then Bronzetti third round. So you think, in theory, Jabeur is a big step up there, but we know what a talent Zheng is. And again, she might be looking at that draw thinking, not 100% on Jabeur. This could be my moment, to make my mark in New York City. So, I'll definitely be fascinated to see how that one gets on. I mean, one player, Chris, that is just steamrolling the draw, complete opposite to Ons Jabeur, is Marketa Vondrousova. She came through, steamrolled Alexandrova 6-2, 6-1. I think she's only dropped 10 games going into round 4. I was reading, I think only Venus Williams and Serena Williams have done the Wimbledon US Open double in the same season. Can we entertain those thoughts or not really? Have we not really seen Vondrousova yet against an opponent that can cause her issues?
As she won Wimbledon, and that was not her best surface. So I think hard courts are her best surface. So, I mean, who's to say she can't? She's always had a very level head, a very pragmatic head when it comes to this sort of the sort of celebrity that comes with it and the fame. She definitely didn't get ahead of herself. She went back home for a bit. She came back on the tour, and she's buzzing under the radar. I mean, a lot of the fans here don't necessarily know who she is, despite winning Wimbledon. A lovely couple I spoke to yesterday said, "Oh, we've got so unlucky with the night match on Armstrong. We don't know these people." And I'm like, she's just won Wimbledon.
That does not surprise me.
No, but she's just made it onto Armstrong. Previously, I'm not sure that she's been on the grandstand, court 17. We're building up to playing in American, obviously, on a bigger stage. But I can't see in this part of the draw an issue with her against Peyton Stearns. I think she just has so much variety, so much game. And, Alexandrova's got a big serve and she made breaking it look like a piece of cake. So, Alexandrova just 35% of points won on the first serve. I mean,
not good.
Vondrousova was seeing it like a football.
Yeah. It just feels like in New York, whenever Vondrousova has stepped onto the court, she's playing great game, because in the ladies doubles, she's playing with Barbora Strycova, who's a very handy singles and doubles player, and they beat the number 1 seeds, Krejcikova and Siniakova, 6-2, 6-3. Yeah, I know.
So she's not losing sets at all. Yeah.
No.
Well, I'd be concerned for anyone in the draw.
I agree, but I also wonder, is the weight of playing doubles also going to be a factor if it continues?
For Pegula, isn't she in 3 right now?
Yeah, I know. Or is it going to help you because it's just you're feeling great and just step on the court, you just kind of continue where you left off. But I do maybe have that question. But I mean, they're against Routliffe and Dabrowski in the next round of the women's doubles. So we'll see how they get on. But as you said, Vondrousova's going to be playing Peyton Stearns. Peyton Stearns came through Britain's Katie Boulter. Annoyingly, Chris, this was in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3. You were there for that. I think you were probably one of 4 spectators there for that. I had actually just come back from a wedding and was watching it late night, early morning, around kind of 12:30, 1 a.m. And genuinely, I couldn't understand. American player looking to make the 4th round, and there was like a handful of people there. What was going on?
So it was originally scheduled. This is the scoop. It was
Okay.
originally scheduled for grandstand. But the scheduling was less than ideal because Jessie Pegula was due on court on grandstand, but she was still playing her singles on Ash. And so then what they did was that rather than, which I think was the right decision for the players, which often it isn't, they moved eventually Katie Boulter over to court 17, almost the de facto fourth court, and then Coco and Pegula played their doubles on grandstand, because otherwise it would be starting on an outside court almost later than the second night match, the night session. So it was a scheduling thing. I think it was tricky because I'm not sure how many people were aware there was a match on that court, and court 17 is a bit tucked away. I think there was a match of Bushkova versus Petra Martic, which had literally 2 people in earlier in the week when...
was one of them you? I'm hoping it was.
Even I didn't go to that one. I found a court nearby where I could sort of see the scoreline. I took an interest, Joel, but I didn't go over. So it's a bit tucked away. So that was a shame because you'd have thought that would have had a good audience. And on grandstand, the vibe would have been very similar to the Jack Draper.
And a big shame as well for Katie Boulter because the wait still goes on for her to get to a second week of a Grand Slam. And this just felt like I know Peyton Stearns is being talked about as a bit of a prospect. You know, she's... come through the college system in the States. I think she's like she's been a champion over there and in the NCAA championships. She's on the up, but I mean, ranked number 59 in the world, you would have taken that as a third round opponent. And to see her, I feel like at times get like almost overpowered, which is not something I say lightly, by Peyton Stearns and her forehand. It was a little bit disappointing because I think Katie Boulter didn't bring the tennis, the levels of tennis that we have seen in rounds 1 and 2.
There wasn't really a game plan, I have to say, which was a shame because Peyton was really hitting the ball hard and Katie Boulter's only answer was to try and hit it harder. And she's. Do you
think that was a bit kind of one-dimensional in her approach? She was just saying, I can just hit this player off the court. And it was quite clear from like the first few games. It was like, actually, this is not happening. And she didn't have a plan B.
I think that's true. I think you've got to do something a bit different, whether it's throwing in a high ball to the backhand, whether it's targeting the backhand a bit more, whether it's, throwing in a drop shot here or there. She did actually come into the net a couple of times with some success. For me, it was just a bit too... If you're going to go out the US Open third round... I want to see you try something a bit different, or I want to see you really thump a ball. And it felt like it got a little bit desperate a bit quickly, especially in that sort of second set. But she was down the early break, and then she got the break back to 4-all. And I thought she cracked.
I thought it was going to kick on. Yeah, I thought she was going to kick on.
Yeah, I really did. So that was a shame. And the 4 people there, myself, Alex de Minaur, and 2 Americans, we did our best to cheer her on, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, it's a disappointing result. But yeah, great win for Peyton Stearns because...
I had her as my pick, by the way, Joel. When we were asked by a fan in the mailbag, I think I said Navarro and Peyton. I went fully American with it because I was really impressed with how she played against Sloane Stephens in some 1-2-5 somewhere or something like that. But
I mean, she's had some very good Grand Slam results this year because she beat, I believe, Jelena Ostapenko at the French Open.
Yeah, she did. She did indeed.
She did. I think then she played Swiatek or she played someone, and less said about that result, the better. But yeah, she's had some good results, and she definitely brings it, I think, at Grand Slams. And yeah, she's a player I think to watch.
It was Kasatkina.
Against Kasatkina, that's it. Yeah, love and won. But yeah, she's definitely a player to watch because, yeah, like Boulter, in that sort of spot around 50, 60 in the world, they'll both have the same ambitions, right, of continuing higher up the rankings. And, for both of them, I feel like a low seeding, around in 28 to 32 potentially is not... Like, for me, that could be like a next objective, I think, arguably for both of them, because to me, they're almost kind of on similar type trajectories, even if the age gap is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think for me, it was very clear from this match, and I'm a big Katie Boulter fan. I think she's a fantastic ball striker, but I think she needs to add variety to her game. And that's why we probably see her lose some of those matches on tour. She's actually only beaten 4 top 100 players this year, Katie Boulter. So despite her ranking being the top 50 now, I think she's got to start beating some more players who are, similar to her in ranking. And that's going to be something where the title to Nottingham, she didn't play a player inside the top 100. So I think it's a bit of a tricky situation going from not playing against top 100 opponents and not winning against them to then being a seed. So for me, I think Peyton's on a more positive trajectory in that sense. But I mean, if you watch that Ostapenko match, hitting through Peyton is not easy. So for example, this is probably Peyton's dream third round as well. You know, she'd be like, great, Katie Boulter, she can't hit me off the court. And then someone like Kasatkina, who throws in a lot of variety, or says generate your own pace, you know, on that second serve from Kasatkina, that's rolling in as well. Peyton wasn't able to to do that consistently, but a disappointment for Katie, but still a third round, as you say. So 2 third rounds in a row is no bad feat.
Also, I loved Peyton says was rocking the long sleeve top, which
it was chilly. I was in my shorts. I was very cold.
Oh, was it very cold? Oh, okay. I even feel like we see the long sleeve top enough on the women's circuit, but
it screams late night Qatar, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes. It's long sleeves to me screams you don't want to be there, but you just turn it up to play on the tennis court.
Well, she certainly turned up.
But she did turn up, and she is into round 4. But we're going to take a quick break now, but join us in the second half where we will be taking a look back from all the action on day 5 at Flushing Meadows. So do not go anywhere. Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need for your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennis weekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennis weekly. Check it out. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by AG1. And now we're going to move on to day 5, Chris. And we have to start with Novak Djokovic against Laslo Djere, compatriots, and a 5-set scare for Novak Djokovic. He was 2 sets down, 6-4, 6-4 to Laslo Djere, but managed to kind of wrestle back control and ultimately win the final 3 sets quite comfortably, 6-1, 6-1, 6-3. 3 hours, 45 minutes. And I think, Djokovic has been in some 5-set battles at Grand Slams recently. I mean, obviously we had that great one against Alcaraz, but this one, coming back from 2 sets down, did you ever feel like we were on the brink of Djokovic exiting Flushing Meadows?
No, at no point. I went to bed when he was 2 sets down. And I thought I opened the school app in the morning, and I thought, right, that's what I thought I'd see. I wasn't concerned.
A bit kind of Roger Federer, Alejandro Falla at Wimbledon. When I always remember that because Falla went 2 sets up. Falla went 2 sets up, and I remember my friend messaging me saying the bookie's favourite is still Roger Federer, and I just felt like in this situation it was kind of
literally the same.
And it's just like the same. Djokovic's still the favourite.
Yeah, and also good old Laslo, he's not necessarily the best at those sort of situations either. I think it's the case of, can he beat Djokovic on the tour? Yes. Can he beat him at a slam? Probably not. Even if he was a break-up in that 3rd set, or any of the sets after the first 2, I still would have, all my money would have been on Djokovic if I was a gambling man, which I am not. But again, with Djokovic, I mean, he does like to drop, a set or 2 in the first week. He wasn't playing well at all, which is probably the more concerning thing, was how he was struggling for rhythm. And it did take, 2 sets for him to turn it on. So a bit of a strange one, because the tennis wasn't spectacular at all. It was more of a, if I was a fan, it makes for a bit more drama, but it is also, I've got to get my train. Could you please kind of wrap this up in 3, Djokovic? 3 competitive sets would have been better than 5 not so competitive.
I mean, if there was one thing Djokovic would have taken from this match, do you think it was almost like this is a wake-up call? Like, I can't just sort of sleepwalk through and, regardless of coming through comfortably, spending 3 hours, 45 minutes on the court, going 5 sets, all the mental energy that takes from you, that's, and going to almost kind of 2 a.m. as well, in the night session, like, that's still like not a situation you want to be in, is it?
It really isn't. And I think that's something that I've noticed even more being here, is just how late some of these schedules are for players, and for your body clock. And, he's someone who treats himself to one square of chocolate when he wins Wimbledon or when he gets a big result. So you kind of feel like if he gets 1 hour less sleep or whatever it might be, that is something that would impact his kind of optimum status. So for me, I think he can take a lot from it, that he can dig deep when he's not playing well, and not playing well and winning is something that he's done quite a lot. I think he's come back, 2 sets down 4 times in 3 years now, I think, against kind of all manner of different players. So I think that's something where he still will back himself to win those matches, but it is unusual that we get into that situation so frequently, despite him winning the title at the end of the tournament.
And we also had the Americans are doing so well, particularly on day 5. It was such a treat, I think, for the home fans, because we had Tommy Paul come through against Davidovich Fokina in 4 sets, Francis Tiafoe defeating Adrian Manarino in 4 sets, and we also had Ben Shelton coming through in 4 sets against Aslan Karatsev. Who, Chris, have you been most impressed by so far at the US Open in terms of the Americans I've just listed? I mean, we're going to have Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton next. I think there's going to be at least a guaranteed male American in the men's quarterfinals. Who for you has impressed you the most, from that list?
Wow, it's not Taylor Fritz, I have to say.
Very true. Very good point, actually. We're not talking about him. He's dropped 0 games.
But yeah, exactly. And I think that people are saying this is the least number of games someone's dropped. And I'm like, well, I mean, if he was dropping more games against some of these players he's playing, I mean, these are people that I'm surprised are in a slam. So in terms of the tennis, I think I'd have to be more impressed by someone who's had more challenges and come through. So I think, for example, Tommy Paul has found ways to win that I think is very impressive, to get himself to a 4th round on home soil. But Ben Shelton has really had a breakthrough tournament here. And I think he's playing some really free tennis and he's really enjoying himself. Him and Taylor Townsend are having the time of their lives in the doubles court as well. And I think that's so important to, you can have the intensity of singles, but also be on site and be having the best time ever with someone like Taylor Townsend and that positive story being written about you. So he is thriving in the first slam that he's played since that big breakout in Australia. And so for me, I think he's probably the most dangerous, but at the same time, I mean, I'm very impressed with Tiafoe becoming, a mainstay of the top 20, top 15, which I think is something that you wouldn't think someone like him, who's sometimes inconsistent, would be able to do so consistently. And so I think there's something to be said for everyone, except I'm not going to get on the Taylor Fritz hype train. What about you? What do you think? Are you impressed by him? I think you sent me something today and he spent 2 minutes on the tennis court. What was it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's funny you talk about Ben Shelton, because I do think, we're seeing the best of him, and no surprise there really in New York, at home, in America. But arguably there's almost he's still a different proposition, a weaker proposition, arguably, when you put him outside of America. You put him in Europe. You see that, I think, in the, in some of his results on the tour this season. And, I'm almost kind of glad, he's making hay when he will probably feel at his most comfortable. But yeah, given, he's so young and, he's still obviously developing and learning all the time, I still think there's almost a little bit of a lag between, the Ben Shelton we see play in New York City versus, the Ben Shelton that has to play on the tour at the start of the year, whether that's in Europe or Asia or elsewhere. Yeah, I almost kind of wonder if there's a little bit of a delay there. But I'm impressed by Tommy Paul. I think Tommy Paul, we came back from 2 sets down in a previous round, came through. I thought Davidovich Fokina would have been a very tough, combative opponent, but again, came through. I love the fact that he's got I don't know if you saw this on social media, he's got a little fan, little kid,
little chap,
junior. Yeah, who's I'm not letting you lose in 5 sets. Yeah, and he's just I want you now at all my matches as my kind of number one cheerleader. And I absolutely, I've people will say that's a very cheesy and corny story, but
write a letter to the school.
I just lap it all up, Chris.
Yeah, I saw some polls. It was who are you more a fan of, the mascots of the Karate Boys or the young fan of Tommy Paul?
That's a good one. That is a good one. I'm siding with the kid.
Me too, because these are grown men dressed up as carrots supporting a 21-year-old or 22-year-old. I'm weirded out by it, but yeah, no, it's been a lovely story, and I think that's something that, do you think the amount of time he spent on court will start to, cause a problem for him? He's spent about 8 hours on the court.
Yeah. That could potentially catch up with him, but I think the crowd are absolutely loving it. Again, I watched the end of the Fokina match. Some of the things that audiences bring to get signed, Chris. I mean, at Wimbledon, it's normally a ticket stub or a Wimbledon program or a hat, Tennis Weekly hat maybe, but we're not doing that in New York City. Tommy Paul, after his match against Fokina, signed toilet paper and a fan's forehead. He signed a toilet paper roll with the paper on it. I just thought
that's very hard to sign. I've got to be honest, that's very hard to sign. So I do feel for Tommy Paul there, because
would you have neglected it? Would you have been sorry, I'm too good for signing toilet paper?
Well, you need something behind that. Otherwise, how are you going to get the traction you need with the pen? But I mean, it just screams that you're suddenly in front of Tommy Paul and you've got nothing. But I mean, they do provide toilet roll at the US Open, so that is unusual in that sense. That's for sure. On the US question, Joel, so Taylor Fritz has spent 4 hours and 31 minutes on court, and he's playing against Dominic Stricker, I believe, who spent 10 hours and 11 minutes. So surely physically, for someone like Stricker, I mean, he's already sort of out of the US Open really, against a Tommy Paul a Taylor Fritz who's this fresh. Do you think that is another really easy, one of the easiest fourth rounds you could probably get?
Yeah, I mean, Fritz seems to be having almost like a dream draw
the red
at the moment.
Carpet's been rolled out.
You still obviously have to beat who is in front of you, and there is an argument I think also to say as you said, the opponents that Fritz has been served up. I mean, Steve Johnson in his sort of twilight years, Varias in the second round, and then Menchik in the third round. The only disadvantage of that, I think, is the fact that at some point you're gonna be stepping up to one of the big seeds. I don't think that's necessarily Dominic Stricker, but are these matches going to be serving him, getting him battle ready for a potential crack at quarterfinals or semi-finals? Who knows? That's the only, I think, worry I would have around the fact that it's almost been too easy for him.
The tournament hasn't started yet really for him.
Exactly. But I mean, he'll take it. He'll feel fresh. He'll feel great. He'll feel confident. But he should come through Dominic Stricker, who had another 5-set win this time against Benjamin Bonzi, 6-2 in that 5th set. So And then actually, last but not least on the men's side, Chris, before we talk about the women, Rinky Hijikata from Australia. He is also through to the 4th round. I was saying earlier, there's a lot of seeds that have basically dropped, and we're getting a lot of unseeded players come through. Borna Gojo as well. Yeah, these players who I'm familiar with, but they're not they're doing a Botic van der Zandschulp did at the US Open a few years ago in my head.
Yes, I can definitely see that as being the case. With Rinky, obviously got the wild card because of the way that it works with the other slams, where in Australia there's always a wild card that goes to a US player, and for him he got the wild card that was awarded for an Australian player at the US. So it's kind of a program that exists. So
a program some people don't think should exist, the reciprocal wildcard system.
It's a strange one, that's for sure. It doesn't necessarily make the most sense because obviously it's only just one wildcard, so this doesn't change anything particularly in the bigger picture of things. But quite often you see the wildcard be selected not do particularly well. So it's pretty good for the tournament that he has done a good job here, because I'm not sure he would have been everyone's pick out of the Australian players to play this. He didn't have a ranking. But again, it's great to see these players who haven't necessarily, had that many results. Someone like Borna Gojo, he's 25 now, and he's.
We're not talking about him, but he's also won through in straight sets all his matches.
That's crazy. He's never been in the top 100. I don't think. I think he's there or thereabouts.
It's wild. I think that's
very wild.
That is what happens though at the US Open. I'd say end of the year, it's a long season. I think it opens it up to to having these types of things happening. The weirdness to me almost happening.
Emma Raducanu vibes. Wait, stop it.
Yes.
He was in qualifying, not dropping.
Oh my god, is Borna Gojo going to be the Emma Raducanu of US Open men's?
He has
2023
Djokovic next.
Oh,
maybe
okay.
not. He might drop a set, just the one.
Right. Well, I mean, moving on to the women's side, we had a big upset. Well, we say big upset. Actually, we sort of predicted this in our last episode, or we suggested it anyway. Sorana Cirstea defeating Rybakina of Kazakhstan. 3 sets, 6-3, 6-7, 6-4. What did you make of this one, Chris? Because, we had this on Upset Alert. Cirstea is she's a very handy player, very experienced player. She's beaten Sabalenka, I think, this year. So she's definitely got the capability of beating the top seeds. Were you still surprised by this result or not so much?
I mean, I think we both wanted to say we thought it would happen, but we didn't necessarily fully commit, but it very much was upset alert. As far as kind of the match went, I mean, it's the perfect matchup for Cirstea in terms of sort of player that she likes playing. Much better against a big hitter. We know that Rybakina hasn't had great results always over here in the US. So I wasn't particularly surprised. I did think, not like it was a foregone conclusion, but this is a rare time where I do think this went as I thought. I thought probably 3 sets and Cirstea would come out the victor at the end of it. Again, it's a story of the first serve for Rybakina. It happens so much with her that she doesn't make enough first serves, and she doesn't know. Well, if she doesn't make many, she's got to win them, and so she just made 56% of first serve, but only made 55%, which just only won 55%, which shows Cirstea was loving the pace.
Yeah, and I think it didn't help that Rybakina, there's been talks of a shoulder injury and her not being like completely fit, and if you take the first serve weapon away from Rybakina, she is vulnerable, and I think Cirstea exploited that essentially.
And the movement side of things as well.
Yes. So, I think maybe a little bit disappointing for Rybakina, but I think, she just needs to go away, rest up, make sure she can come back fit and firing, because, she's still got lots of tennis to come. Hopefully we should be seeing her at the, the WTA end of season finals as well. But, in this moment, Cirstea, who, Chris, quarter-finalist at the French Open in 2009. Impressive to see her longevity in terms of her career and how she's just basically stuck at it. And now she's got another opportunity to make another quarter-final potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that would be quite the story.
Bencic fourth round, is that foregone conclusion, Bencic, or could you see Cirstea pulling off another upset?
Well, Bencic hasn't been playing her best tennis. It's been a bit iffy here and there. So I think if you're Cirstea, it's always tough to back up a win. And I think that's something that she has sort of found, that she is that highlight match sort of player. Hence the fact that she hasn't obviously been, past a quarter-final for, she's played so many slams and not gone past, even the fourth round for a very long time. So it's a tricky one. I would say that Bencic probably will be a bit too solid, but if you're Cirstea, I think it's probably, you're probably looking at that as a good draw. And it would be, quite the story. That section of the draw has opened up. But I think, Joel, an on-song Bencic has enough variety to take out Cirstea, or do you think that Cirstea might get in her head?
I think a Cirstea could continue the run, to be honest. I'm always back that. I think she's going to be high on confidence. I know we sometimes see players, not being able to kind of back up big performances, but I think Bencic. I know Bencic has done well at the US Open in the past, but I'm going to go with the underdog here. But another player who actually is into the fourth round that maybe not as many people would have expected, Caroline Wozniacki, Chris, won the battle of the comebacks against Jen Brady in 3 sets, 4-6, 6-3, 6-1. She's into the second week of a Grand Slam, her first Grand Slam back. This to me is stuff of, I don't want to say, maybe not stuff of dreams just yet, but this is definitely beyond kind of wildest, I think, expectations, particularly, I think, from tennis fans in terms of the level we were going to get from Wozniacki and where it was going to take her.
I said it on the pod. I wasn't sure necessarily what was the motivation to return beyond, to give it a try, missing it and being kind of addicted to it and wanting to do it again. And I think she's proved me wrong in so many ways, because she's added to her game. And that's not something that I think many of us thought she would do. Because she didn't change that forehand, over the course of her first career. And this time she's completely changed it in terms of the way that she's hitting through the ball. And I did a tweet about this. I really do think it's a weapon now. And even against Kvitova, when I saw that match on Ash, she was winning points by putting pressure on the forehand. The same was true with the Brady match. So for me, I think that's the biggest change, is that this is Wozniacki 2.0. I use that phrase for Coco Gauff, and I feel like she fixed her forehand in many ways, and Wozniacki's fixed her forehand. So she's not got that weakness. She's got a great serve at the moment. She's serving really well. Her backhand has always been one of the best backhands on the tour. And so if you look at the pieces of the puzzle, you know, she's got everything that you need to get a good result. But coming back, did we think this would happen at the US Open? When I read that Vogue article, absolutely not. So I think she really means business, and there's something that real fire in her that I think if she comes away as the champion of this tournament, I genuinely would not be completely surprised now.
Big words. Well, I mean, she's going to go from battle of the comebacks to, in your words then, battle of the 2.0s, because we look at play coming up for day 7. Got Caroline Wozniacki, Coco Gauff on Arthur Ashe. That'll be a good one. Yep. Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton, the All-American kickoff as well. In the night session, Borna Gojo versus Novak Djokovic. And what I think is the one we're most fascinated by, Iga Swiatek versus Jelena Ostapenko. What is going to happen in that match? I can't even picture in my mind what we could be in for.
I honestly think that Ostapenko and Arthur Ashe, have we seen it before? Because I think that will be a wild concept in many ways.
Ostapenko v Swiatek, and Ostapenko versus the crowd, Ostapenko versus the umpire, Ostapenko versus the world. I mean,
it really is. And if you're looking at this from a matchup perspective, it is 3-0 to Ostapenko in the head-to-head. She's only lost one set to her. Their most recent match was in Dubai, which was a final set tiebreak, and then Ostapenko obviously went on to win that tournament, and that was the last loss before Iga's winning streak kicked off. So, I mean, Ostapenko has played pretty poorly so far, but we all know that all it takes is for her to turn up on one day, and then she can hit anyone off the court. A bit of a Petra Kvitova in that sort of sense. So, if you're looking at this match from an Iga perspective, you would be concerned. And I think she does love a challenge. She said, you know, all the pressure's on her. So I think that I'll do well because everyone wants to beat the number one in the world, and she's got a target on her back, basically. So it's fighting talk from Ostapenko, but what do you think? Could this be the problem that Swiatek can't get over?
It's tough. I think there's only one way to solve it, and that's how we're going to end this episode. We're going to do some very quick fire predictions. I want name and number of sets. Let's start. Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton.
5 Paul.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say 4 Shelton. Wozniacki, Gauff.
3 Wozniacki.
Or 2 Gauff. Gojo, Djokovic.
I'm going to write these down, Joel.
Gojo, Djokovic.
Gojo in 3.
Djokovic 4.
I'm obviously joking, by the way. Maybe I'm not.
Swiatek, Ostapenko.
Why not Ostapenko in 3? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't actually believe that, though, but hey.
I'm going to say Swiatek in 3. Yes. Okay, let's just round off the final matches from round 4. Mukova, Wang.
2 sets Mukova.
Agree. Kostya, Bencic.
Oh, I might say 2 sets Bencic, but 7-5, 7-6.
Kostya, 3 sets. Hijikata, Tiafoe.
I think that Tiafoe will come through probably 3 or 4, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, Tiafoe in 3. And then finally, Dominic Stricker versus Taylor Fritz. Where are you going there?
I would love an upset because I think that would be hilarious. But no, I think that Fritz will come through probably in 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think
how did I not get a laugh, Joel, for Djokovic going out in straight sets to Borna Gojo? Like,
did I say Gojo in 4? What did I say?
I said Gojo in 3. And you were like, yeah, Djokovic in 3.
Oh, did I? Sorry, no. I was just so... it just sort of went over my mind because I thought in my head...
I think he thinks I'm serious.
I think...
the Radicali prophecy
You've been drinking all night. You've been drinking the
Gojo.
Hugos all night, have you?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's too early for that. It's literally 7 a.m.
Right. Well, on that note, on that crazy prediction end note, we're going to stop there. But listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action from week 2 at Flushing Meadows at the US Open. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. And the handle is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can also purchase Tennis Weekly merch at our Etsy shop. Do check it out. It's etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast. You can email the show, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to check out our website, it's tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we are going to be back in double quick time tomorrow evening, Monday evening at Tennis Weekly HQ for our round 4 US Open catch-up sponsored by AG1. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.